Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Once again, thank you for tuning into the space and time with me. You are much appreciated. I wanted to make this just a rather quick podcast. I just don't want to put too much energy into this whole coronavirus scene. I'd rather provide solutions on how to heal and remain healthy as sovereign beings. But I do know that from experience, the best way to heal and to remain healthy is to just live in a state of love, and this means eliminating fear from our lives. And the best way I see in this being done is to just address the source of this virus and its purpose in our state of existence. So, whether you come from a scientific background, religious background, spiritual background, whatever it may be, this will all make sense to you and it will come full circle. Again, this is my experience and viewpoint on this whole subject, so please don't take what I say as the 100% truth. I always want to mention that because I know that there are people who really value what I have to say. And just through experience, I know that I've taken the words of people that I really value too much to heart. And it just created a lot more issues than resolutions. And that's the last thing I want to do. So, whenever I look at a situation or a circumstance, I always look at it from an energetic perspective because that's just the background and experience that I have. So, I want to talk a little bit about the sine wave and the torus field because once you have a solid foundation, a solid understanding of that, you can apply that to anything in your life, whether it's fitness, health, your music, dancing, like whatever it may be. You can apply this certain pattern that the universe follows, and your situation and circumstance will just make sense. So, um, to start off, this sine wave, it comes from the ecliptic path of the sun. So when you look at the sun's motion in relation to the earth, you'll see that it creates a sine wave. So it starts at the equator, it goes up to the Tropic of Cancer, back down to the equator, and it continues to go down to the Tropic of Capricorn and then back up. This is where the sine wave comes from. If you're having a hard time picturing this, you can just Google sun sine wave and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But this is where if you have a strong mathematical background or maybe just a strong visual background, you'll be able to picture this a little bit easier. So when you revolve a sine wave around its oscillating center in 3 dimensions, because we do live in the 3D realm, um, you get what's known as the torus, and this is basically the foundational pattern of everything in existence. So you'll find this word Taurus hidden in one way or another in pretty much all scriptures, um, all scientific teachings, all spiritual teachings, anything. So like in the Jewish system, the law of God, that's Torah, and Thor, uh, you get Thor from Taurus. So Thor is Thor's Day Thursday, who is Jupiter, and Jupiter is Zeus. So Zeus is Jesus. So it's all interrelated. The shape of the atom is actually the shape of the torus. So atom is also referenced in pretty much all fields of knowledge, whether it's the atom of creation or where it's in Christianity, you have Adam from Adam and Eve. In ancient Egypt, in Kemet, they say all is Atum. In Hinduism, they say Atma. This is where anatomy comes from. The universe is found within the man. So again, because everything is interrelated, I can explain the torus field in many different ways. I'll start from like a physics background. The torus field is comprised of dielectricity, magnetism, and electricity. Electricity being the interrelationship between dielectricity and magnetism. So dielectricity is what's known as like black light, dark matter, black holes. It just governs rest. In magnetism is white light. So mag in Sanskrit is motion. So magnetism is pulsating. It doesn't vibrate. So that's electricity. Electricity vibrates. It's an analog. Dielectricity and magnetism is digital. It has no amplitude, while electricity has an amplitude. This dualistic aspect of life always has a cause and effect. So the cause being dielectricity and magnetism, and the effect being electricity. So again, think of the causal plane as a longitudinal energy and the effectal plane as a transverse energy with amplitude. So one way to understand this is that the outcome, the electrical field, the effectal field that we live in and experience in this earth, it's determined by the resistance in the median of whatever it's being traveled through. So this could be air, water, ether, fire, or earth. So this resistance causes duality. So once the causal plane comes into effect with a certain median, it creates a certain outcome or a certain transversal wave. So this wave has an amplitude, and that amplitude is determined by the amp of the longitudinal wave. So the easiest way to actually visualize this concept is to picture a pebble being dropped into the water. So the pattern of the rings formed around the pebble is the causal plane, and the actual waves themselves are the effectal plane. So I know some of you just kind of spaced out for the last 2 minutes, and that's totally okay because I'll explain this in a little bit of a different way for those that have more of an energetic or spiritual background. I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. If you are, or if you do have like a physics background or a mathematical background, and you are kind of interested in what I had to say, I know I'm not the best teacher, but someone that does a really good job explaining all of this, his name is Ken Wheeler. You can go on his YouTube channel and just look at all of his videos. You can just binge watch them. They're really interesting. His YouTube channel is Theoria Apophysis, TheoRia space Apophasis. Super interesting videos and literally a genius. So I would definitely watch his videos. I took some physics courses in high school, so I'm always interested in that aspect as well because I do appreciate the work of people like Nikola Tesla. So that always fascinates me. So definitely check out his channel. But for those that don't have that physics background, but you still want to understand the idea of the torus, think about it like this. It creates duality. So we get things like red shift, blue shift, red pill, blue pill, red sirens, blue sirens, like on cop cars, hot and cold, good and bad, with the sun and moon, feminine, masculine, what else? Past, future, just all of these things that we experience here in the earthly realm as duality. And the reason being is you can go back to the saying, the universe is found in man. So the torso is the Torus Field. So the rib cage displays the pattern of the Torus Field, actually. And if you look at Ken Wheeler's videos, you'll see how the patterns of light travel through his ferrocell, which is super fascinating. Even if you're not into like technology or anything like that, just check that out because it's really interesting and it really ties into all of this. And just the more knowledge and things you come across, the more you can kind of tie it in and just have a more holistic approach to all of these things. So uh, the top of the torso is the blue chakra, it's the throat chakra. The bottom is the red chakra, the root chakra. So there's a constant shift of energy that goes up and down. This is the idea of Kundalini practices. It's to create awareness on this shifting process. So there's the Ida and the Pingala, which are nadis. So these are energy pathways, and they Ida is basically the blue shift, and Pingala is the red shift. The Ida, which is the blue shift, governs the moon, the feminine aspects of us in the past, and the Pingala represents red or the sun, masculine, or the future. So we can see how this Taurus is basically found within all things, including us. And so that's why there's the saying that if you understand the stars, you understand yourself. As above, so below, as within, so without. So the more we try to think about this idea of balance or center, or just centering ourselves, we kind of actually further ourselves from this stillness, I guess, which is what the idea of all spiritual practice and all aspects of life wants to return to, is that stillness. And as soon as you attach like a certain association to that stillness, you create a thought process, and thoughts are still part of the affectal realm. It's part of our um, biological and mental um, programs. When you are in the plane of effectal, so when we're here experiencing life, it's very dense. You know, we have a lot of thoughts, we have a lot of emotions, we have a lot of interactions. Everything is very dense here, and to return to that space of stillness, we kind of have to get rid of all of that weight. And when when we think of stillness, we have to think of things outside of the body. Um, or I shouldn't say think, we have to exist outside of the body, because again, once you attach thought to something, that's still in the realm of the mind, which is attached to the body. So the stillness that I'm always mentioning, this is what's known as death. And it doesn't have to be like a physical death. It could be just the death of an idea, the death of your mind, the death of thoughts, the death of emotions. Um, so to return back to that causal plane is to just detach from all aspects of ourself. So in order to do that, we can't fear the idea of death, because as soon as we attach fear to something, we identify that through the mind. So once we attach fear, we we start having a certain emotion or a certain thought, and this is all going to be governing that affectal plane. So we just keep returning back to that affectal plane, and we want to return back to stillness. So this kind of, I'll make a separate podcast about this, but this also has to do with us as a society being very left hemisphere dominant of the brain, or not necessarily being, but being more geared towards that. The left hemisphere of the brain actually governs the logical aspects of just thought, and the right side deals with things like the unknown and creativity. So because we go to school, we follow certain rules, we follow time. We have to be at certain places at a certain time. None of this is good or bad. This is just how the system is set up, basically. So we're extremely engaged with our left hemisphere. So when we're approached with a situation that requires the right hemisphere, or dealing with the unknown or creativity, we kind of freak out and we can't handle it. So we resort to things like drugs, drinking, um, sexual habits, just anything to return us back to that logical, comfortable space that we know works. Like we know that drinking will kind of numb us, so it makes us return back to that comfortable space. But the more you practice things that engage the right hemisphere of the brain, the more you'll be able to control that aspect. So when you're approached with a situation that requires you to actually um, engage yourself in a way that's where you have to face the unknown, and you have to problem solve and do all of these things, you're more prepared for it. And one of the ways to do that is actually through meditation, yoga, dancing, anything that makes you feel creative or inspired, that takes you outside of that logical realm. So a lot of issues occur in society because of this imbalance between the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. So this is again the idea of the torus. You have the red shift and the blue shift. You have a constant shift in between two polarities, and it's a constant shift until we reach stillness, and that stillness is death. So we shouldn't fear this idea of death, and that's actually where I wanted to go with this and tie it back into the coronavirus. So um, energy manifests its way in this state of existence through many ways. And we have to understand that this virus was just simply a continuation of an energy that was already in effect. So it just happened to manifest or take its form as a virus. So we can always go back and speculate and like blame these elites and all of these people, and we can come up with conspiracy theories and all of these things. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that it's all energy work, and whatever someone's experiencing, it's an energy traveling through them. So now I kind of want to get into the more astrological side of this. Is just again my viewpoint and my thoughts on this whole coronavirus. So we went in 2012. We went from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, and I'll probably make another actually separate podcast about that as well. But basically, the age of Pisces was the age of believing and doubting. It's the two fish. So you saw things like wars, famine, churches being really relevant. Oh, you should believe in God. Oh no, you shouldn't believe in God. And that was like the theme the past couple of hundred years. There was always like a war or like a conflict. Now, because of the internet and um, technology, we have a certain understanding and awareness to where we now know the truth lies within ourselves. And so that's the age of Aquarius, the age of knowing. Hence this podcast's name, Age of Knowing. So Aquarius is the only feminine zodiac sign, strict purely feminine zodiac sign. So with it brings a lot of motherly energy. That's why the past like 50 years you saw like the women's rights movements and women rising into positions of power. Um, this is a very feminine energy, and women will thrive during this period. And you can already see that with all that's going on. So again, because this is a very motherly energy, you can see this type of energy being, let's say, like a very I will die for what I know to be the truth within myself. So you see this like in vegan activism, people are willing to die for animals and for what they know to be right or wrong. And you could see this in like the environmentalists where they're putting their lives out there to make sure that Mother Gaia, this Earth, is in a way that is very sustainable for us. So on top of that, Aquarius is an air sign. This is why we'll see a lot of issues arising that has to do with the air or traveling through the air. So things like chemtrails, 5G, which is a really big concern as well. And I'll make podcasts on each of these separate topics because again, all of this, I can go into like hours of just like discussing each individual topic. But I just wanted to kind of lay an overview on all of this, so I can give a different perspective on where this is all coming from energetically. So air pollution as well, a big thing in this era. Viruses traveling through the air, which is where this coronavirus comes from. So uh, another thing we have to understand is that the nourisher is always going to be more powerful than the thing it nourishes. So as much as we want to physically be able to help the earth out, the only way out is in. So we have to understand that if we want to help Mother Earth, we have to draw back into that stillness and become uh, just kind of level up consciously. Like we have to make an effort to improve ourselves because that's the only way we'll be able to improve the environment around us. So the earth never kills. The earth actually is an anagram for the heart. So it only gives life. So the metaphysical meaning of this is that earth is basically the birthing ground of manifestations. So this is where the idea of the torus comes from as well. Um, this the the inertial plane, the longitudinal plane of existence, is Earth. This is where we experience things in a dualistic state, and in order to kind of shift or go to quote unquote heaven or reach enlightenment, we have to do things that not only benefit us mentally, but physically and spiritually as well. And that's returning back to that stillness. It's understanding that not everything is going to be still right off the bat. There's always a shift going on in energy, and when we ride this wave, we become quote unquote one with the universe or the earth. And that's if you truly care for the environment, if you truly care for the people around you, you would work on this aspect of yourself so that you can fully understand yourself, you can fully love yourself, and there's no room for fear at all whatsoever, so that you can serve others. I know there's this um, like really big idea going around that we should serve ourselves and that we should do everything for ourselves, and that's very true. We should um, be lovingly selfish, so we take care of ourselves so that we may have the strength to take care of others. But at the end of the day, the true power lies in serving others, and the others not as in just other human beings. It could be animals, it could be this earth, it could be the universe, um, whatever your role is, whatever you see yourself as doing within this lifetime, just fully commit to it and fully give that 100% effort. So I just wanted to kind of go over that. I know I didn't want to make this too long, but it ended up being like 21 minutes, which happens, it's whatever. But yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed this. I'll touch more on, actually, I think the next podcast I'm going to make is more about like healing, because these past two podcasts have been like kind of informative in terms of where we are as a society and um, energetically where we are. But um, I just feel like my purpose has always been to help people heal. If you've been around me for long enough, you know that I always give out like a healing vibe. I always make sure that I try to um, give people information that'll actually help them in the current situation. It's cool to know all of this and to have it resonate, um, because eventually knowledge is power. So when you know all this and you let it resonate, again, there's no room for fear. You can only live out of love. But I do want to make some podcasts about what we can actually do right now um, to help ourselves so that we can help others. So whether this is um, herbs we can take, practices we can do, lifestyles we can live, just things like that. And this is all again based off of experience and things that have helped me. But I just really think that the more we live in unity and love, the less we'll experience all of these quote unquote negative things, because realistically duality only exists in the affectal plane, and when we return back to that causal plane, we see the real truth and the real experience life has to give us. And so it just makes us really appreciative. And so I'm really bad at like closing out or saying bye. And that's with anything in general. Like whenever I say bye to someone, like I don't really know how to like end the conversation or anything like that. So if you enjoyed this, please let me know and let me know what you guys want me to talk about in future podcasts. But if you're just waking up and you're starting your day, enjoy your day. If you're about to go to sleep, enjoy the astral realm and have a beautiful and blissful experience. Catch you guys next time.